When you think about businesses that are selling through the roof, like Skims or Allbirds, sure, you think about a great product, a cool brand, and great marketing. But an often overlooked secret is actually the businesses behind the business, making selling and for shoppers buying simple. For millions of businesses, that business is Shopify. It's home of Shop Pay, the #1 checkout in the world. You can use it to boost conversions up to 50%, meaning way less carts going abandoned and way more sales going through to checkout. Upgrade your business and get the same checkout Allbirds uses. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/income, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/income to upgrade your selling today. Shopify.com/income.
Welcome to Accelerate Your Business Growth,
where we're exploring all sorts of business topics. Experts from around the world join me, your host, Diane Helbig, for a conversation where they share their expertise with all of you. Take what you need when you need it. Featured on Inc.com, Forbes, and MSNBC's Your Business, this podcast is recognized as one of the best podcasts for small business, sales, leadership, social media, and more. When it comes to business, Accelerate Your Business Growth has got it covered. And now on with the show. My guest today is Laura Watson. Laura is the founder and lead business coach at Venture Coaching International in Calgary, Alberta. With over 25 years of counseling and coaching experience, she helps business owners and executives across North America to improve their personal communication and leadership effectiveness. Laura's superpower is bridging theory to practice. She expertly takes challenging business, leadership, and communication concepts and breaks them down into practical and usable ideas and action steps. Thanks so much for being here today, Laura.
Thank you for having me, Dan. It's great to be here.
It is. I'm thrilled to have you here. We're going to be talking about emotional mastery, which is something that I know I deal with my clients, where it or even being on a board of directors, where situations become emotional, and so they become more difficult. Mm-hmm. When people can't, myself included, can't really regulate. So yeah. I cannot wait to learn.
It's a bit of a tricky skill, but it is a skill, and with practice can absolutely be learned.
Oh, thank goodness. So let's start with, if you would explain to the listeners, what exactly is emotional mastery?
I see emotional mastery as our ability to stay rational and logical in situations that emotionally trigger us. So there's always going to be things that people say, don't do if we're business owners and we're frustrated with our team not doing what they need to do. That frustrate us, that irritate us, that triggers are usually based on situations from our past, and we end up bringing that emotionality and reactiveness from our past into a current situation. And then we don't handle it properly. We lose control of ourselves. We become reactive versus responsive, and say and do things that we later regret and even sabotage ourselves with. So I see emotional mastery as an ability to not let our emotions take over our words and our behaviors. And instead, it's a skill that we can master that allows us to be responsive in a thoughtful way versus reactive.
Oh, so great. And I swear to goodness, you are talking about this, and I am reliving an experience I recently had where I was not at my best. Yeah. So this is, timely, I guess I would say. But how do we know we've been triggered?
Oh, because we feel it. That's our emotions are always that first clue. So we have to listen and notice how we're feeling. So that's so we're going to feel stressed. We're going to feel, it's usually a negative emotion of some kind. So we're going to feel stressed. We're going to feel, pissed off. We're going to feel anxiety, anger, frustration, any type of emotion that doesn't feel good. That's an indication right there that we've been triggered. It's really an automatic emotional reaction to something that has just happened. So that's how we know we've been triggered, is we feel it.
Okay. So we feel it.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so now we're aware, hopefully.
Mm-hmm.
So what do we do so that we don't let it rule the conversation?
Yeah, great question. So when I work with my clients around this topic, emotional mastery, I actually have a model that is a one-pager diagram that's really easy for them to see what's going on. So I'll describe it to the best of my ability since we don't have visuals today. But basically, everything happens with an event. An event is something that someone says, someone does, or someone doesn't do. So let's use a really simple personal example. An event could be from the days when my kids were still living with me. My son had the habit of coming home at night and parking his car in the driveway right behind my car in the garage. And he liked to sleep in the morning. So the fact that he was parked right behind me prevented me from being able to get out to my meetings on time the next morning. So here's an event. My son has parked in the driveway. That's what's so. Now it happens, no matter what the triggering event is, we have this automatic emotional reaction that I just talked about. And the reaction, if you could imagine this in a diagram format, what I'm describing right now is basically the beginning of a downward spiral in our thoughts and feelings and behaviors. We have the emotional reaction. We feel the irritation. It's based on, if we were going to go around in a diagram on a circle, think of a clock and think about going counterclockwise on the clock. So our emotional reaction to the event sits at 12 o'clock. That's where we start. Then we would come down to 9 o'clock. That's the emotional reaction. Then we would come down to 6 o'clock. And what sits at 6 o'clock are thoughts and beliefs that we have, usually from our past. It's really the limiting beliefs or the thoughts that are actually at the source of this trigger. And then that sits at 6 o'clock. Then the next part of the reaction is our behavioral response, to the event. So the event is my son parks behind me in the driveway. I feel irritation. My belief or my thought is, oh, my son is just so disrespectful. Doesn't he get that I have to go out in the morning? And he's always this way. And then my automatic reaction might be, depending on how we deal with irritation, it might be silent treatment. It might be yelling. It might, to try to get him to change his behavior. I, in the past, have had an automatic reaction of slamming doors, not my best times. And somehow people are supposed to know that me slamming a door means I'm pissed, and
Right.
they're supposed to do something different versus me communicating clearly. And so this is that downward spiral. We have a reaction based on some sort of belief or thought that we're having, which leads to an automatic behavior that is not productive, which then circles back to 12 o'clock again to create another sort of event that usually is not productive. And round and down we go. So is that making sense so far?
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
very much. Yeah.
So that's the negative downward spiral.
Okay.
And it all began because something happened and we went into resistance of it. We don't like what happened. We've gone into resistance. I didn't like that he parked his car there, and around and round I go. So in order to shift this, and this is where the practice of emotional mastery begins, is we have to go back to the event first. And we have to remind ourselves that the very first step is realizing that the event in and of itself, it's just an event. It's just a piece of data. It's a fact. My son parked his car in the driveway. That's what happened. That's the what so. From that event, I now have an opportunity. I can go into automatic resistance of it, which is usually our unconscious, reactive place, or flipping the switch. And the first step into emotional mastery is about accepting the event. So the opposite of resistance is always acceptance. So I have to accept the event. It is what it is. So that's actually a little tool that I use for myself and with my clients to help them get to a place of acceptance. They can ask and they can tell themselves it is what it is. It's just a fact. It's just what happened. Or they can ask themselves the question, what do I need to accept? And when they ask themselves that question, their intuition and they will an answer will pop up about what they need to accept. So in this example, I just needed to accept that my son had parked in the driveway behind my car. So then once we're in acceptance of it, now we can respond versus react. So now that I'm in acceptance, I can move to choice. Choice is now where I ask myself the question, okay, what do I want to do about it? I have a number of options. I can go grab his keys and move his car for him. I can have a conversation with him so that he understands the impact of parking behind me so that hopefully he will choose differently next time. There's a number of things I can choose. So I go from acceptance into asking myself, what do I want to do about this situation, which gets me back into choice. Once I'm in choice, then I feel in control again. I can think it through. And I can be responsive. I can choose whatever action I want to take and then take that action. Once I'm in action, then I'm moving forward again. I'm no longer stuck. I'm not going down this negative spiral anymore. I'm in acceptance. I'm in action and I'm moving forward again. So I actually equate this model to the idea of flipping a switch, like a light switch. When our light switch is off, we're going down, around and down that spiral that I just talked about, which leads us, we're in the dark and we go nowhere. By turning our light switch on and moving ourselves first to a place of acceptance, then to a place of choice, then to a place of taking action, we're moving forward. And that really is the mechanism of emotional mastery.
This is so interesting. And one of the things I didn't hear, but I feel like it was implied, so I'm curious about this, is in the first instance, there were the beliefs and feelings, he's disrespectful, blah, blah, whatever. That didn't exist in the second one. So, right? You never went to motive.
Yeah, because a motive is a story that we are making up about the event. It's a story is really what we're telling ourselves to rationalize whatever the event was. And who knows? It's really speculation, and it's our stories that we make up that get us into trouble because we make up a story about what the event means, and then we react more so to our story. Now, his decision to park behind me could be he was feeling rushed. He just needed to get in the driveway and maybe he was really desperate for a bathroom break. Who knows?
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
But if I go to the place of, he's disrespectful and blah, 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 blah. Now I've created a story about what that event means. And now I'm reacting to my story, which is speculation in the first place. So we can create so much relief and freedom for ourselves if we stop making up stories about what things mean and just deal with the situation itself. I have another cool example from,
Great.
I was working with a client. I showed up for our session and she was in a fit. And she was in a fit because she sits on a board and she had received an email from another board member. And she read the email and went in. She made up a story about what the email meant and what this guy was saying. And she was just going off about what he had said, and total snit. So then I had her read me the email, and I didn't hear anything in the email that would have caused me to react. I heard no story. I heard nothing. And so I had her stop and I had her reread the email with no tone. I just in a neutral fashion. And as soon as she reread the email in a neutral fashion, she got it right away. She realized, oh man, I'm making up a story about what he is saying. I'm making a bunch of assumptions, and now I'm reacting to my assumptions versus the factual data in the email. And she flipped her switch immediately just by neutralizing what she was reading. And then she was able, instead of, jumping on the keyboard and smashing out an angry response, she was then able to slow herself down, pause, and respond thoughtfully versus reactively. Is that addressing your question about the story stuff?
Boy, it sure is. And it's funny because as you were telling the first part of the story, I was thinking, I think we've all been in that situation. And I have found that if I walk away from the email and then come back and reread it, just reread it. Like I wasn't really thinking about not putting a tone in it, but I can read it differently the next time. Which is easy with email because you have the opportunity to do that. I think it's more challenging when you're actually face to face with someone.
Absolutely. Yes. With email, we have the benefit of time. We can look at it. We don't have to respond immediately. We can let it soak in. We can come back to it, what have you. So I appreciate that. Yes, it can be a little more challenging when we're dealing with someone face to face. But the same mechanism applies.
Yeah.
Even when we're dealing face to face with someone, if they have just said something to us and we feel that reaction, like I said, it always starts with a feeling.
Yeah.
We feel something that we may not even, we don't have to psychoanalyze ourselves in the moment. We don't have to look back and see what this reaction is based on our past, blah, blah, blah. All we have to do is feel it. And once we feel it, it's like, okay, we can stop ourselves for a moment. We can still, even face to face, take a pause, take a breath, remind ourselves in our internal dialogue, don't make up a story here, and just take a moment and just revisit what this person has just shared with us. Or better yet, active listen what this person has just shared with us, which would look like paraphrasing back to the person what they just said. So we could say something to the effect, I'm going to pause here for a second. And I just want to be clear that I'm understanding what you're sharing with me. If I'm understanding accurately, you just said blah, blah, blah. And so if we can, and that's in next level mastery, when we can slow ourselves down in the moment.
I mean, I love that, but yeah,
that's really next level mastery is pause in the moment, active, paraphrase back to the person what they've just said, or even share with them, you know what? I just had a bit of a reaction to what you said. The story I'm making up. Like, take ownership. The story I'm making up about what you just said is XYZ. And then the person has an opportunity to clarify. It's like, oh, no, sorry, I didn't mean, that's not where I was going with this, or I wasn't assuming, or I didn't mean, what you were just explaining. And that gives the other person an opportunity to clarify what they were actually intending with their communication in that moment. And then once we have clarity established, then we can move on to the next step in conversation, right? But so often people are not really listening. They're listening to respond or to say whatever they're going to say next versus really letting whatever that person is saying sink in. And if they're not, if they're getting triggered by what the person is saying, it's because, they're actually making up a story about what that person is saying, or they're making an assumption of what that person is saying, and they're reacting to their assumption versus what the person is actually saying or intended to say. So we need to pause, clarify, and then carry on. And it's doable. It's challenging in the beginning because it feels new and different, but it is doable. It's a skill. With practice, it can be mastered.
So, what about when you're on the other side of that? So, you are receiving communication, behavior, whatever it is, from someone who does not have mastery over their emotions.
Yep.
And right, because I think it's easy then to the same, right, to react and do the same. But what do we do so we don't do that?
Yeah, that's a great question, because I've definitely experienced a lot of that. And that's another opportunity for us to practice emotional mastery where someone else is reacting to us.
Yes.
And, we see or sense the reaction. And then we have an opportunity to step up and say, whoa, 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 can we slow this down for a second? I'm sensing that, you're upset about what I just said. Can we stop for a moment and clarify what I just shared? That can be one way of handling that. Sometimes, however, we just need to exit ourselves from the situation as well. And just give each other a timeout, if you will. A personal example for myself on that is I'm actually a competitive ballroom and country dancer. And I have a dance partner who did not have emotional mastery and would get very stressed out when we were approaching an event and competition. And so his nerves were on edge and he would get very reactive with me, starting to criticize me and how I was dancing or whatever it was. And I had understanding, first of all, of where his reaction was coming from, which helped me have patience. And I didn't accept his behavior as far as I didn't tolerate it. I wasn't a doormat to it, but I understood it at least. My understanding helped me be patient. And in my patience, I was able to share with him, it's like, you know what? I think we need to take a pause here. I sense, you're upset, you're stressed, you're anxious, you're reactive right now. We can have a conversation about that, or we can take a time out. And I would give him an opportunity to choose what he wanted to do in that moment. And oftentimes what he would do is he would give himself time out, go outside and have a smoke, and then come back in and we would carry on.
Yeah.
So yes, I mean, even if we're on the receiving end of someone else's reactiveness, we can definitely still sense and active listen, paraphrase the reaction that we're sensing in the other person, make some suggestions as far as taking a pause or create clarity, and then time out if we need to, then circle back, clarify whatever the initial reaction was about, and then carry on.
Yeah.
So it definitely works both ways.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. This is really helpful, Laura. I mean, we all encounter these things, I think, especially these days where emotions are heightened. And I know customer service departments experience it are the victims of it a lot and are challenged by it. So I really appreciate this information. I think this is these tools and ways of doing things are going to be really helpful for the listeners. So thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, my pleasure. I hope it is helpful, ultimately. And yes, I mean, we live in a very fast-paced society, and I think that there's pressure on us all the time. You go faster, do more. And, in that speed pressure that we're in all the time, it just heightens our emotions and heightens our stress levels. And when we're stressed, logic goes out the window.
Yeah.
Right. Which which exasperates the reactivity. Right.
Yeah.
So we have to give ourselves permission to just slow down a minute.
Yeah.
And reflect, become aware. Is this a story I'm making up? Is this a story somebody else is making up? Let's, take a pause, practice the pause, whether it's walking away from an email or taking a breath in a conversation in order to get ourselves regrounded, refocused, dealing with the actual data of the conversation or the moment. And then so that we can be in acceptance, get ourselves back in choice and be responsive.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. Thank you. Will you tell the listeners how they can find you, please?
Yeah, I'd love to share that. So, always happy to have a conversation with people. I love talking about this kind of stuff because it makes a difference in their business. It makes a difference in their personal lives. So this kind of work, it's fascinating for me. And I do it because I know the huge difference it can make. So if people want to find me, my website is venturecoaching.ca because I'm in Canada. And if they want to find me on LinkedIn, my business page is Venture Coaching, or they can just look up Laura Watson on LinkedIn, the same on Facebook as well. I'm there also, and always happy to have a conversation. So they can reach out, they can friend me, message me, and we'll go from there.
Terrific. Wow. It's really great. As I said, thank you so much. And listeners, thank you. You are who we're doing this for.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Accelerate Your Business Growth, a production of Evergreen Podcasts. Discover more episodes of this podcast and explore others at evergreenpodcast.com. As always, continue to prosper and be curious. And if you're looking to get your sales strategy headed in the right direction, pick up a copy of Succeed Without Selling on Amazon or wherever books are sold. Until we meet again on another episode of Accelerate Your Business Growth, goodbye and good day.
Do you love news about LinkedIn, Indeed, Google, and just about every other recruitment tech company out there?
Hell yeah. I'm Chad.
I'm Cheese.
We're the Chad and Cheese Podcast.
All the latest recruiting news and insights are on our show.
Dripping in snark and attitude.
Subscribe today wherever you listen to your podcasts.
We out.